Good afternoon. Welcome to PDC. My name is Anson Tsao. I'm a program manager for the Visual C++ group. I'm responsible for the libraries, MFC and ATL. I hope you've all got your copy of Windows XP this morning. So how many of you have already installed Windows XP on your laptops? It's a few of them. Okay, have anybody else had a chance to play with the beta or the hands-on labs, Windows XP? Okay, cool. So this session, I'm going to be talking about what it takes to write an XP app and what type of technical issues that you might run into, how to be a nice application running on the XP platform. Then I'll be talking about the Design for Windows XP logo program. I think that's going to be very important for for those of you that have off-the-shelf products. And finally, depending on the time, I will talk about some of the new features for Windows XP. So why is Windows XP important? First of all, it's the biggest operating system launch that we have had since Windows 95. And what's really more important is that this is really the first time that we're bringing all the home users onto the Windows 2000 Windows NT platform. And as a developer, this is tremendous because moving forward, I don't have to worry about, well, will my application work on Windows 95? Will my application, work on Windows ME? Will it crash? It's just such a more stable platform and much more secure platform than before. And we've also added a lot of really end-user features in Windows XP that will be really exciting for home users like my dad. We have added things like remote assistance that allows you to call somebody. I've trouble with my application. I want technical support. Now with remote assistance, I can get somebody in the technical support group to actually show me how to do something on my desktop. Right at home. So that's really useful. There are two flavors of Windows XP. There's the Windows XP Home Edition, which we really want everybody who's using Windows ME, Windows 98 to move over to the Home Edition. And there's a Professional Edition, which we're expecting people who are currently running Windows 2000 Professional to move over. And really, Windows XP is much more than just a new user interface over Windows 2000. We've added a lot of features like being able to burn CDs directly from your Explorer. We've added features like what we call the real-time conferencing, which is really the Windows Messenger. But what's more important for developers is that we have a API to let you use that inside your application. So again, I can add video conferencing in my application. That's probably very useful for corporate applications. The window messenger being able to use instant messages, that's great for like technical support. So you have all those features available to you in Windows XP. So let's take a look at what it takes to start getting your application run on Windows XP. I think the first thing to understand about Windows XP is that Windows XP is actually a much more compatible platform to the existing Windows 98 and 95 and Windows ME application than Windows 2000. That's very important because we're expecting people, the home users to move over. So we've done a lot of work in that area. But Windows XP is also different than the current, what people expect of Windows 9X platform. And we'll get into some of that about, how you should make your application work well. So there are really three things that you need to consider when you start writing Windows XP applications. Your application as it stands right now will work, but you really want to be a good application on Windows XP. Windows XP has a new visual style. Windows XP looks different. So if you want your application to look like a new application on Windows XP, then you should consider adding the new visual styles of Windows XP into your application. Windows XP is all about reliability. So what we've done, previously people get into what we call DLL hell, which is when a shared DLL is being upgraded from under you. Your application may or may not work. Now we have a whole set of facilities in Windows XP that really helps you manage what type of shared facilities your application is using, and that's called side-by-side assemblies. And finally, in Windows 95 and Windows ME, people really don't bother setting up multiple users account at home. But with Windows XP, we have a new feature called fast user switching that makes it much more convenient to set up multiple users accounts on the same machine, and it's going to be very important for you to make sure that your application works well when there are multiple users on the same PC. And finally, I would try very hard to get you guys to get your application certified. It's going to be very important for you, and I think it will be a great benefits as well. Okay, so first of all, Windows XP has a whole new look and feel. This is really the first real update of the Windows UI since Windows 95. And the first thing that we've done is that we've dropped 256 color support mode. So now, Windows XP applications will have, you will know that you will have at least 16-bit colors and higher for Windows XP. In fact, 24-bit, you will actually notice a difference in the UI running at 24 bits versus 16 bits, and 24 bits just looks much better. We've changed the way that the common controls are displayed in Windows XP. We now use much more rich visual styles like having non-rectangular buttons and alpha channel that allows you different levels of transparency, and various hot states of control. So as your mouse hovers over your a tab, they will change color. And then we're preparing for high density displays. These are going to be like the 200 dpi displays that we will be seeing in the future that will really change how your application looks, and like you'll get very crisp text and all that type of stuff, and we're preparing for that. And finally, your HTML forms are also themed, so you have this uniform style throughout your applications. Okay, so let's if you haven't seen XP already, I'm going to do a quick demo on what XP looks like. So first of all, this is the Windows welcome screen. You get this display when you use the fast user switching. So there's a big change in the start menu. You will notice that all the icons and the visual effects are really much richer color. We've gone away from the 3D gray look into a much more graphical look. So for example, we can go and take a look at the control panel. Everything is really much more graphical. And you will see that the windows are no longer rectangular. I suggest that if you haven't had a chance, go to the hands-on labs and really take a look at play with XP. So let's move forward here. Okay, so how do we do all these rendering? We've added a component called the Theme Manager. Theme Manager is responsible for rendering, positioning and rendering all the graphics for the common controls. The Theme Manager exposes a set of API that you'll be able to use and leverage some of the graphics aspects of the common controls in your own applications. And Windows XP applications will be themed throughout. You will see the new common controls like buttons, list boxes, the scroll bars inside the client area of your application. And for existing applications, only the caption and really the border of your application will be themed. And the interior will still have the existing look. So that ensures the compatibility of your existing application. So the new common controls like the list view, the tree views, they're all in the common control version 6. Now, for compatibility, we're actually shipping both the Common Control 5.8, which is really a slightly updated version as you get with IE 5.5, and the new version of Common Control version 6. Now, your application, in order to be a Windows XP application, you have to explicitly choose to use the Common Control version 6, and you do that by a manifest. I'll get into that in a little bit. So the new Common Control it's not 100% compatible with the old one, so you have to be careful about when you want to use the new one and the old one. We really took out a lot of hacks and various type of stuff that have accumulated throughout the years in the old Common Control. So you have a choice of using the old Common Control and the new Common Control. So what have we done for MFC applications? MFC now has a new DLL called MFC 7, and we've added our application wizard will now generate the application manifest, which is what tells Windows XP that this application should be using the new common controls. We've added that in the app wizard to actually generate the manifest as you create your application, so that will allow your application to be themed. We've added the new messages. We've added the new methods into existing MFC classes to support the new features in the new common control. We have custom controls like the checklist box. We've changed the code in that to use the new theming visuals, so that you will see the new checkbox will use the same various themes as you have in your in the rest of Windows XP. MFC has also added support for active accessibility. That's not just part of Windows XP, but that really allows the different types of input methods to really have access to your application. And finally, for things like the open file dialog box and the save file dialog box, by using the new MFC, you would automatically get the new Windows XP and Windows 2000 style open dialog box. There's nothing you actually need to do. There is also a new printed setup dialog box, and because of backwards compatibility, we provide you a cprint dialog box X class, but you have to do some work in order to make that to make use of that. Okay, so what does it take to theme an application? I've got this great MFC application. I want it to look great on Windows XP. What do I have to do? So theme applications must have a manifest. Manifest is a text file. Manifest is an XML file that really describes your application's dependency. I'll go into more of that later in the side-by-side talk. So in particular, what I have to do for my MFC app to use the common control is that I really have to tell the Windows XP operating system that I'm dependent on the common controls version 6. And you do that by either including this manifest file as a resource, or you can have it as a file, as a text file inside the same directory as your application. I'll give you a demo of that in a second. So manifest is an XML file because we love XML at Microsoft. Everything that we do nowadays will be XML. And the manifest is ignored by down-level OSs. So if you put a manifest in your MFC application, you can still run it in Windows 2000 and Windows 98. You just won't get the new theming, the new visual effects from the theming API. So this is what an application manifest looks like. It describes your application, but more importantly, it describes what your application is dependent on, what DLLs your applications are dependent on. And in this case, in order to get the Common Control version 6 to work, you have to be dependent on the assembly identity here. It says that, hey, I'm dependent on version 6 of the Common Controls, and what's important is the public key token, because these are going to be shared. This particular this particular DLL that I'm depending on is going to be shared, and I need to give it a specific digital certificate, and that's what uniquely identifies what I'm dependent on. So now I'll give you a demo on how to get your application to work with a manifest. So what I've done is I've compiled a really simple do-nothing MFC app. And it's just a dialog box app with some random controls placed on it. So as you can see, I'm running it by itself. I have not added an application manifest in this for this application. And it looks just like what you would have had on Windows 2000. So how do I get this? So how do I get this to work that make it to look like Windows XP? So what I've done is I'm using instead of using the resource version of the manifest, I'm just creating a text file and putting it in the same directory. This is really the same manifest that we saw before. Now the thing that I have to do is to name my manifest properly. So the name here should be the name of my application.exe.manifest. And for the demo, I've added the underscore there so that it wasn't being picked up when I first ran the application. Now I'm going to name my manifest properly. And when I run it, now I have the new visuals. You notice that the tabs are no longer gray. I have non-rectangular buttons. The subtle shading in my radio controls. And this is what is called a hot state. As you move your mouse over various controls that we have, they have a hot state. So it is possible for you to just look at your current MFC app and add a manifest there and get that to work. But it's not always that simple. Sometimes you rely on some third-party controls. Even if you're writing a new app, you might be dependent on some third-party controls that don't work well with the new ComCuddle. So what do you have to do? You still want your application to look like the Windows XP application. So so you still create an application manifest like I've shown you before, but instead of setting the resource ID to 1, which is to say that all my application and all my DLLs will now be dependent on the new ComCuddle control. When I set my application manifest resource to ID 2, it only says, hey, only my application, only this particular exe is dependent on the new ComCuddle control. And any other DLL, well, they're on their own. They'll still be relying on the old ones. Now you can, if you have your own let's say OCX or DLL that also can use that, then you can actually add a manifest to those DLLs and for them to be dependent on the ComCuddle control as well. So the way that this manifest works is really part of the side-by-side assembly functionality in Windows XP. And the ComCuddle really just relies on using this side-by-side assembly functionality to tell your application that, hey, I'm really interested in this version of a DLL versus the standard version. So you have isolated applications and side-by-side assemblies. And what that is, that uses the manifest, application manifest, to really define what you're dependent on. So moving forward, for example, I'm dependent on one version of the MFC DLL. I want to make sure that if my application is not being upgraded, I'm always going to be running against that particular version of DLL. So that's what isolating an application is about. So isolated applications really ties down what your DLLs that you're dependent on. So if somebody else updates a DLL, you're not going to get affected. And that really makes sure that your application works well over time. And as part of this mechanism, we recognize that as you upgrade your application, these dependencies can change. I might have updated one of my DLLs. I want to get that changed. So again, we have some mechanism to call configuration files that lets you update that. And finally, what's really, really important for, for having your applications work well is that now if you isolate your application, you can actually use Xcopy to install them. You don't have to register your COM controls as long as your manifest declares those COM controls, and you can just register them. So I can have 2 applications, and each have basically the same COM control, but one is a newer version. I wouldn't worry about who's updating that. I'm fully isolated, and then if you need additional control over particular versions, there's a set of API called Activation API that lets you set up to say, hey, I'm actually dependent on this version versus that version. So isolated applications. So a Windows XP application is an isolated application. You have to give it a application manifest. We're shipping 2 shared assemblies that you can only use if you specify that you're dependent on it. That's the COM cutover control and the GDI plus. And if you isolate your application, you can install it with Xcopy, as I mentioned before. So what are side-by-side assemblies? Side-by-side assemblies are DLLs and COM components that have the manifest. And there are really 2 types of side-by-side assemblies. Private assemblies. Private assemblies are assemblies that your application will use. You don't expect anybody else to use. You put them in your directory. In fact, you can do private assemblies now with Windows ME, Windows 98 SE, and Windows 2000. You just have to put your DLLs in your applications directory. And in the case of COM controls, you have to register them, but you can put in a .local file that tells the Windows 2000 to use the version that's in your directory rather than another directory. So you can do that now, except that with Windows XP, it's much more refined, and you have the manifest that actually specifies these things. And then there are shared assemblies. Shared assemblies are DLLs that you expect other people to use. And GDI plus and COM cutover is one of those. You may want to ship. Let's say if I'm a control vendor. I want to ship my control that's usable by multiple people. I might want to make my assembly shared as well. And what I need to do is I need to sign. You have to digitally sign your DLL, and you need to place it in the Windows Win side-by-side directory. And you don't need to register, and you do not need to register your COM controls. So MFC 7 DLL, previously, we've gone through a number of versions of MFC, and we still call them MFC 4.2 DLL, and then we tell people to put that in the Windows directory. And that has caused some problems for people. So now, as we move forward, we're renaming our MFC DLLs, and we're telling you to put that DLL in your own application directory. So there's no chance of somebody else changing that DLL from under you, and that's very important. And the other thing about the new MFC DLLs is it's not binary compatible with the old version. So your old code will work, but if you have new code, you need to recompile them with the new MFC 7 DLL to use Visual Studio.net. And that includes that means that you have to recompile your application, your existing MFC extension DLLs also needs to be recompiled. So one of the scenarios as we go forward with these things such as shared assemblies is that we know that people are going to update those things, and we don't want to break the code. Now, isolated applications, you can't are now isolated. You can't just drop in a new DLL and expect everybody to use that because they are isolated. They are tied to specific versions. So we have these configuration files that as you send your service pack to your shared assembly, you can also set up these configuration files that tells all the applications that are currently depending on, let's say, version 1 of your shared assembly. Now they should be using 1.1. So that gives you a lot of power in terms of telling applications how to behave when various components are updated. And this is also great for like system administrators. Is that if they find, hey, this application doesn't work with the old one, or they need just one of the shared applications to use a new one, they can do that. And you can do that either as a publisher configuration file, which can tell everybody using the shared assembly to move to a different version, or as you upgrade one application, you can also set up a configuration file to tell that application to be dependent on a different version of the DLLs. So the third major thing that has happened with Windows XP is the fast user switching. This really is a feature targeted for the home users. Previously, in Windows ME, for example, most people don't set up different users' account because it's not convenient. You have, dad using the computer, and then mom wants to come in and check her email. You don't want to log back out and log back in, and so people just all share the same account. And in terms of security, usability, it's really not good. I mean, we really want everybody to use their account so that they can have their own cookies, they can have their, the own saved passwords, and their own versions of Outlook, things like that. So we've added this feature called fast user switching. What this allows you to do is to rerun multiple sessions on the same PC at the same time. So what would happen is that, hey, dad is doing a word processing app, and mom comes and wants to check her email. You can very quickly switch from one user to the other user without dad having to log off and then switch back as you need to. So user profiles are very important, and now your application, we have to make sure that your application is putting data in the proper place. So let me give you a quick demo of fast user switching. Okay, so this was my demo before. Now let's say my wife comes in and wants to check her email. So I'm going to go, I don't want to log out of this session. I go to my start menu. I say log off even though I don't want to log off. Now I have an option of switch user. So switch user will bring me back to this welcome screen. And welcome screen shows like 3 users that have set up accounts on this box. And let's say I want to switch over to my wife Joyce's account. Now Joyce doesn't have a password because she doesn't care about that. So we can just click on that. And now I'm actually starting her session. I guess I should have logged her on before, so this makes this quicker. Now this is the first time she logged on, so obviously that takes a little bit of a time. But as you can see, when I go switch back over to my session, it'll be a lot quicker. So here she can go and do her notepad thing if she wants to, or calc. Do whatever she wants, log onto the net. And now I come back and say, well, I really want to do something on my session. Then I can quickly go and switch back to mine. And because I'm security conscious, I don't want to look at my files, I have a password. And I'm back to where I was. So this is really a very important features for home users. And it has some implications in terms of your application, because now there are multiple versions of your potentially multiple versions of your application running on the same box. So what does it mean to work well in a multi-user PC? In the local specification, the application specification, there's a set of requirements for you to do, and it really describes what you need to do very well. And the types of stuff that you need to do now. You need to make sure that your application is installed for all users, not the current user. You need to make sure that you're saving your temporary files, you're saving your user settings, and your application data in the proper profile. And more importantly, you have to deal with the case where users are set up as limited users. These are users that don't have the local administration privileges, and we expect a lot of people will be setting accounts for that for security purposes. And you need to make sure that your application, if you get the access denied situation in terms of writing, for example, trying to write to certain parts of registry, that first you don't do that. If you do, deal with the access denied gracefully. And there are other situations as well. There are, for example, if you use a hardware resource, for example, I'm using a camera, so that you may actually have multiple versions of your applications trying to use the same hardware resource. And in order to be nice, you should really give up the hardware resource when your session is switched out. So how do I check for different sessions? Before, people have used find window to see if there's another window of a particular class that's running. Well, that won't work anymore, because if you enumerate through the windows in your session, you only see all the windows in your session. Somebody could still be running exactly the same application on a different session, and you won't see those windows. Events, you can use like mutex and events and semaphores. Those things by default are localized to your session. So if you want to have a global mutex, for example, to determine if somebody else is running, then you're going to have to append the name of your mutex have to be appended with a global backslash path, essentially to that particular mutex. And that will work on all operating systems that are Windows 2000 and up. They will get ignored for other operating systems. And don't switch to previous versions of your application, because that might be running in a different session. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that your application, generally will work in the fast user switching scenarios. But if you really want to take care of that, then these are some of the stuff that you want to be notified of the session change using the Windows Terminal Service Register session notification. That will give you a window message back, and you can get notified in terms of whether your session is changing or whether there is a session change globally. And more importantly, now you have multiple people using your desktop. So your temporary files really shouldn't be centralized in the same spot, because that has security implications, and everybody really should have their own copy of temporary files. And you also don't get in, if you use the API, the sh get folder or get special folder to find your particular session's version of these folders, then you don't have to worry about contention issues. If you blindly go and write to the C temp directory, then potentially you're going to have another session trying to do the same thing. And you should make sure that you use these APIs to get the directories. And you can ship. We have a version of the sh folder DLL that you can ship with for down-level operating systems like Windows NT4, to give you the best place for these folders. So we have had logo compatibility. We have had logo compatibility programs before, but for Windows XP, we've made a lot of changes. First of all, the design for Windows XP logo is really aimed at the retail users. Before, with the Windows 2000 logo program, they were aimed at system administrator and make sure that, with a big company, and make sure that my application works. But for the Windows XP logo program, we're really aiming at the home users. In fact, we've made some arrangements with retail chains where if you have a Windows XP logo application or software, you will get better display positions in these chains. So anybody who has a off-the-shelf product, you really should consider getting your application logo certified. And in Windows XP, we also have a Windows catalog that is a website that allows a user to find applications that works well in XP and to be compatible. And as a Windows XP local certified program, you get better placements. And if you really design your application to target the XP platform, then you get this optimized logo. And then we will do even more stuff to make sure that people know about your application. So in the Windows catalog, we will rotate the front page to highlight the optimized XP programs. So what do you have to do to be XP logo compliant? The requirement really specifies 3 areas that you have to deal with. First, Windows fundamentals. Your program has to run well, so you promise not to crash, and if you do, you have to deal with it. And you promise that when you install your application, you have to be able to uninstall it and not break other applications, and deal with the issues that I just talked about in terms of the having multiple people and putting your application data in the right place. And all this is outlined in the application specification version 2.2. And if you want the optimized logo, there are different types of best practices that you should do. There's one for XP, which means that you have to use the XP visuals, and there are various best practices for games, how to make use of the 3D engines properly. Accessibility. So those are all separate categories of optimized for Windows XP logo, and we will have more of those as we move forward. Now, the biggest change in the logo program this time around is that you will be the person testing for the compatibility. Previously, with the Windows 2000 logo program, you had to submit your application to a third-party testing lab like VeriSign. Now, this time around, we give you a very clearly defined set of test cases that you perform on your own application. And you sign the agreement with us to say that, yes, this is my application is certified. We will agree to the conditions of using the logo program and all the lawyer type information. You submit that to us. We will audit your application, but you no longer have to submit it to a third-party lab. So really, the intent is anybody who are writing off-the-shelf software should really consider getting the XP logo program, because that really tells the users, the home users, that hey, your application will work well in the Windows XP environment. And so what do you have to do? You have to submit it to the, right now we're using the hardware quality lab infrastructure for submitting applications. So this is the website that you go to. You submit a copy of your application, you sign the legal agreement, and you should get yourself, you should add your application to the Windows catalog. So those are the things that you have to do. And we will audit your applications. So the whole process of getting the certification will initially take probably about 2 days. And but the auditing really is an ongoing process. With Windows XP, the Dr. Watson window, when your application crashes, there's the option of the user sending that report to Microsoft. And then what that has is something called mini dump that allows us to have more information about the crash. And through that process, we really get everybody using your program to be part of the auditing process. So, and that really allows us much faster turnaround to get your logos certified. And what happens if we discover a problem? When you sign the logo agreement, you really agree to fix that non-compliance problem within 30 days, and then post a patch or fix to your application with that. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the new Windows XP features that we have. Windows XP has a number of developer-friendly features, and GDI Plus is one of the really big additions. GDI Plus, if you've gone to the any of the WinForms sessions before, you know it's the primary drawing model for the .NET framework. But GDI Plus is also available to MFC applications. And it has both a managed API for the .NET and really a very similar API as you for Windows applications. Because now you see all the highly visual rendering in in Windows XP, GDI Plus will help you with that. So GDI Plus is really a parallel rendering structure with GDI. It has a new programming model. It supports the transparency and different types of alpha blending. It does anti-alias drawing, so all your ellipses, your drawings, your text are anti-alias, so they will look much better on on your displays. We probably won't be able to actually see those anti-aliasing on this screen. GDI Plus natively supports things like GIFs, JPEG, and being able to read and write to those things. So that should help you with a lot of your applications. GDI Plus has real-world coordinates, so you can, when you're drawing, you can specify to draw in inches, and GDI Plus will deal with the display resolution of your display and your printer. GDI Plus added some new brushes, like gradient brushes. These are like fountain fills that for your visuals. Cardinal spines are spines that goes through smooth curves that goes through a number of points. Path objects allows you to save various states of your drawing so that you can use that for clipping. You can use that for various. You can combine various paths together to make more complicated displays. And scalable regions. Before, regions are basically bitmap level stuff, and with GDI Plus they're scaled. So I'm going to give you a quick demo on writing some GDI Plus code in MFC. So the first thing you need to do to use GDI Plus in MFC is to include the GDI Plus header file and link to the GDI Plus library. And the next thing you need to do is to call some startup code. There's really not a lot to it. I have a class here that handles that for you. And you need to call, when your application starts, you need to call the GDI Plus startup. And that will return a number of tokens or cookies that you need to keep around till your application closes. And when your application quits, you should shut down nicely and passing back the types of tokens that was initialized for you when you started up. So in your MFC application, you'll be using this. You'll be using the startup and setup code in your init instance. In this case, right here, and your exit instance when you shut down. So that's all you need to do to start using GDI Plus. So let's take a look at what GDI Plus, drawing into GDI Plus looks like. So I have a view here with the typical on Paint. This is not a document view, so it's not on Draw. It's just a window. So you have the typical on Paint method call back, and you get your begin Paint or Paint DC. Now the first thing you do is that you have to pass that to the GDI Plus graphics object. So this is the equivalent of the HDC. This is the GDI Plus graphics context, and you initialize that with your device context, and then you can use the this particular graphics context to draw into. So here, what I'm going to do in this demo, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load a. I am going to. Oh, there we go. I'm going to load a JPEG bitmap and display it. So let me just run the application, and I'll show you what that looks like, and I'll go through this code with you. I'm lazy there. I did not convert a long to a float. So this is very simple, just loading a JPEG and displaying it. And the way I did this is I use the from file command of the bitmap object, and that returns a pointer to a bitmap object. And I store that with an auto pointer so that it automatically gets displayed. Obviously, you don't want to load your your file on every redraw, but this just shows you the code. You use the get last status to see if your bitmap has loaded correctly. And to draw the bitmap is very easy. Just draw an image, pass the bitmap in, and say I want to draw it in in the 0, 0 coordinates. There's a number of different overrides for draw image that allows you to scale your bitmap. There is actually an MFC class called CImage that uses GDI Plus for these type of functionality as well, but you can obviously use the GDI Plus classes themselves. Okay, so for the next demo, I'll just show you how you would draw something. Now, GDI Plus have changed the way that that you specify your pens and your brushes to your to your drawing objects. GDI Plus draws both the outline and the fill separately. So you would fill a rectangle and you would draw a rectangle. You specify that separately. And no longer do you select a pen into the device context. Every drawing command you pass the pen or the brush in. So we can take a look at the draw rectangle code. So this section of code really shows you two things. First, it shows you how to actually fill a rectangle, and the second thing it shows you is how to use the real-world coordinate system. So we'll start by the first thing is I'm constructing a brush that takes a color. You notice this has 4 parameters instead of the normal RGB. So the fourth parameter, 128 here, is the alpha channel. So I want to fill my rectangle partly transparent. I have saved graphic state. We can ignore that for the time being. And here I have the fill rectangle. So fill rectangle fills a rectangle in size, in pixels in this case at coordinate 10, 10, and 30, 30. And it fill it with this particular brush that I've created. Now I'm going to draw this 10 times, and each time of drawing this, I'm going to change the coordinate system with scale transform and translate transform. And what you would see is that I'm actually changing the way, what 10, 10, 30, 30 means when I'm drawing onto the coordinate system. So this allows you to do things like zooming much easier. And if I can also tell my graphics context, and I'm actually drawing in inches as opposed to in pixels. So all those are options available to you. So I'm just going to run this. So you see I'm going to draw the rectangles. The first one on the top left is the original 10, 10, 30. And as I go through a transform, I'm accumulating the various scale and rotates. And I have the various rectangles with different coordinate systems. So finally, GDI Plus does a lot in terms of text. First of all, Windows XP ships with something called clear text that makes anti-alias text look much nicer, especially in small sizes. And GDI Plus allows you to make use of, really control your text. So for this demo, I created a font that's Arial. Size is 300 points. And the font style is bold. I'm going to also create a linear gradient brush. This is a fountain fill. So this has, using the size of the whole thing, I'm going to have from left to right, and I'm going to change color from blue to red. And I'm going to tell, I'm setting up a string format to tell the draw string to center this text. And now I'm going to draw my text. So the text is PDC. GDI Plus uses only Unicode strings. So that's why there's an L in front. And it's 3 characters using the font I specified. This is the centerpoint.x and centerpoint.y is that particular warning that we saw before. This tells you to actually draw it on the center of the client screen using the format and the brush I specified. So you can see that I have a gradient fill across my text. Very easy to do. There are three types of gradient fills. There's a linear gradient fill, there's a radial gradient fill, and there's one based on the path. So GDI Plus is actually not just available for Windows XP. You can use it for Windows 2000 and Windows 98 SE and ME as well. You can ship the GDI Plus DLL with you. You should be putting that inside your own directory as opposed to in the Windows directory. Again, this theme of making sure that you isolate your application, you ship all the stuff that will make your application move and make sure work, and make sure that nobody else can update those DLLs from under you. I don't have a demo for the image mastering API. This is the CD burning API. You will, I could show a demo, but you can't really see the CD. So this API allows you to burn both data CDs and music CDs, and it's very useful for things like if you want to do backups of your application, if you're a enterprise applications, or you can burn music CDs for your home applications. The image mastering API are a set of COM objects. Virtually all the Windows XP new APIs are COM objects. The way that you specify how your what you're going to burn into a CD is through the iStorage interface that you might be familiar with from the structured storage for OLE documents before. We're reusing the same API, so you can either set up a structured storage document and just pass that in, which you might not want to do because you have 650 megs of storage there, so you don't want to make a big file. Or you can create a class that implements that the iStorage yourself. We have examples on the got.net site on how to do this in Visual C++, and I have a link for that later. And you guys, if you're interested, you should go to that site and take a look at our sample. And the other really exciting one is the real-time communication that's based off the both the net meeting and the Windows Messenger. That is shipped with all copies of Windows XP. You can do video conferencing. Between the different versions of XP. You can do the instant messaging. Instant messaging will work with other Windows Messenger. Other people who have installed the Windows Messenger, such as Windows XP. But for video conferencing, for whiteboarding and application sharing, those requires you to have to work between Windows XP. Again, the API is COM objects, and we also have an example on how to do this in the got.net website. And the final API that I just want to highlight here is called the Background Intelligent Transfer Service. And this allows you to set up your application to, for example, for updates, that you can do this in the background. So I can set this service up, queue up to say I want to download these files from a particular server, and as for example your laptop gets online, offline, this particular service will take care of that and continue on with the download when you get back on the site. So this will be very useful for people who want to do online updates and various types of downloading content to people's machines.